Okay, my name is Laura, and I grew up here in Sacramento. I am 27 years old at this point. I was telling myself, I think I'm going to start from the beginning, when I first knew what gay was. So when I was about 8 years old, I had seen an episode of Saturday Night Live, and they had mentioned something about somebody, so-and-so was gay. And, you know, I had heard the term in the early 90s, you know, being talked about a little freely. So I decided to go up to my mom and dad one day. And I said, Mom and Dad, what is gay? And they said, well, it's when another man loves another man, or a woman loves another woman. And I was like, it really started to make me think, there's another option. Because before that, growing up as a girl, I would get, so for example, one year for my birthday, I got the Cinderella and Prince Charming Barbie set. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And, but I didn't really envision myself as part of that. So it was kind of, I knew it kind of wasn't realistic at the time. Anyway, they're just dolls, right? But the whole notion was it's a man and a woman together, and they find true love and happiness and happily ever after. And I couldn't really see myself in that. I didn't put myself in that. But I was like, good for them. And so that's when I found out what it meant to be gay. Then fast forwarding through to my elementary school years, relationships weren't really first on my mind at that point. But I had had this prior knowledge that I knew that there was other options, age appropriately speaking. When I got into middle school, I kind of thought about it more. Classmates, things like that were, starting to get into the whole dating thing, boys, so-and-so looks good, oh, hey, all the girl talk that happens. And I said offhandedly one day, I think I was in 7th grade, and I said, oh, I don't know, maybe I'll just try a girl. And they were like, the reaction I got wasn't accepting. It was like, ew, what are you doing? And I was like, okay, so I will not talk about this now. Kind of made me made me feel less forthcoming about who I was potentially going to be. So, cut to freshman year of high school. I came out to one of my friends first, my good friend from kindergarten, who we had kept in touch with. And I was spending the night at her house. We were having a sleepover. My sister was there. And we took this online quiz, something to do with what's your ideal guy or something like that. And I was like, at the end of it, I kind of took it. But I said, yeah. Told my friend, I was like, really wasn't thinking of a guy. And she was like, oh, okay. She took it well. At this point, my sister knew about it. So the next day, we're in the car. My mom's driving, and my sister goes, hey, Mom, guess what? Laura's gay. And I said, oh. I was like, okay. I was like, what the hell's that? So I was kind of like, well.
She pulled you out.
I was like, well, I kind of wanted to tell her myself in my own time. But, cat's out of the bag. And so, oh, okay. Okay, and that's, so when I came out to my family, it was a very, much more positive than I thought it was going to be. I didn't think it was going to be negative exactly, but it still wasn't good. And when it happened, it was pretty positive, and that was happy. That was good for me. So that happened. The family member I was worried about the most, my grandfather. Now, this is a few years later, and I had graduated from high school, and I was living with my girlfriend at the time, and he came to visit. And he kind of asked my dad, he was like, is Laura a lesbian? And he was like, I think so. I had never told him. And later, when they approached me about it, I said, yes I am. And it was just fine. And he was the most I was concerned about. And it turned out to be very positive as well. So from a family standpoint, I had a very, very open and welcoming coming out. And I felt so fortunate to have that, because most folks don't. And during that whole time, I was happy about my family, but to other people that I had just met, I was still cautious. I had strangers, potential new friends that I didn't know about. It was still, I was careful and cautious. And here I am. That's my story. Thanks for listening.
This is my daughter, Laura, of course, and I'm her mom. And my name is Shari. And I came from a very traditional background back in the 60s. I was born in the 60s, raised in the 70s. I was really fortunate to have parents who were very liberal and open-minded, which I thought was very good. We were an interracial family. My mom is Japanese and my dad was German. They came from World War II, which is an oxymoron right there. So there was a lot of, back in the 60s, there was a lot of racial discrimination and a lot of separatism and things that we encountered but didn't really totally understand. And I think the story that I would like to present is more of the white elephant in the room. It's tradition meeting the new ways of thinking. I was raised with a very traditional background, with a lot of traditional religious beliefs. My mom was Buddhist Christian, so we had that very structured religious understanding. And so as a child, my beliefs were very structured, and there was a real sense of how things are supposed to happen in your life. So you grow, you have a boyfriend, you get married, and you go on your merry way with your homemaking and whatnot. So it was a very standard thing that you went through. So growing up, I had a lot of conflict, because if you had questions or you were curious about something, you didn't necessarily want to ask anybody about it, because it just didn't exist. So as I grew older and thought about that, I was very deep in wondering about that. And at times I was really curious, to know, is there something else out there other than just the traditional boyfriend, girlfriend? And, but I didn't have anyone to ask, so it was a very closed area. So fast forward to getting married and having children, and as you have children, your mindset changes, your way of thinking changes, and of course the years pass, and there's a lot more out there about homosexuality and lesbianism and the whole thing. And so I started to be concerned about how to raise my children in terms of being very open-minded about those types of things. And then my concern was, how would I react, or, how would I deal and handle with, you know, questions that they may have, things like that. So, when they got to that age, you know, a lot of the things, you know, that you deal with at that point is family members questioning, asking, you know, does she have a boyfriend yet? You know, where's her boyfriend? And, you know, as it got to that age, it became a little more concerning to me, because do I, you know, say, oh, well, she doesn't, or is she, you know, and well, then why doesn't she? You know, I mean, she's 18, she hasn't had a boyfriend, what's going on? You know, so there's all this questioning to me as a parent as to why she's not being in the traditional mode of what should be happening at certain times. And so that was a little conflicting to me. And then when, of course, you know, as she said, she in the car, as we're driving along, all of a sudden Alani says, oh, by the way, Laura's gay. What? I almost had a car wreck. I was like, a little shocked at the time, but, you know, I thought, oh, well, you know, if that's what she is, if that makes her happy, then, you know, that's what I'll support her in whatever she does. So, you know, so in that regard, I like to be open, think that I was open-minded enough for my children. And, you know, at that point, you really care about your children more than you think, you know. I mean, to the traditionally minded people, and of what I would say to the children of those, you know, who are gay. I mean, they always have that fear that their parents are just going to just shun them and bye-bye, see you later, you know, especially if they're closed-minded, harsh people. But, you know, I think a lot of times, you know, if you give them a little more credit than that, you know, I think sometimes, you know, just maybe just putting it out there and seeing what happens, you know, I think they might surprise you. You know, coming from that traditional background, I think that their love for you is more than just simply shunning you and saying that it's the end of that. So, anyway, that's my experience.